Hi Nadeem, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, doing really well. Well, I think actually, I'm sitting here in London, but I know you are in a much more interesting location right now. Why don't you
I'm
tell our
in
audience where you are?
I'm in Karachi. I'm not sure if you can see. I'm going to move my camera, but it's like you can see some of the views outside. So it's beautiful. The sun is coming down, but quite light. So actually, it's hard to see because the sun is shining. But we're not far from the beach. So as soon as I'm done with the interview, I'm going to go to the beach with some of the colleagues, some of the team here, and we're going to have a nice dinner on the beach. So it's perfect
Oh
environment.
my God.
It's
Oh, that looks absolutely incredible. Also, was that writing on the walls as well, on the windows? We've been
Yes,
using that
this
as
is
a
yes, this is our that's our all the brainstorming on the various companies and models, and we're in the middle of structuring and stuff. So all that stuff happening, plus the whiteboards. So good usage of all any space we have. So yeah, unfortunately, that's a lot of that is my writing. I find it quite therapeutic and also quite good for brainstorming. Yeah. So
yeah, what an inspiration, kind of like writing on the this cityscape. Oh,
yeah, exactly.
incredible.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, well, this kind of like probably, as you know, for today, what we want to do is introduce our audience to the Future Farm team, and this kind of leads perfectly. You also have another role outside of the Future Farm. Um, so it'd be great to hear a little bit more around that, and actually, why that's actually brought you to Pakistan as well.
Oh, sure, absolutely. So look, my background has been, always in around technology and financial services and some combination thereof, either running businesses or, building businesses, both as an entrepreneur, as a corporate leader, as an investor, right? A culmination of all that stuff for the last, 2 years has brought me to Pakistan, where we are along with a couple of our founders, including Vladi, who is also the CEO and founder of Future Farm. So we're building a business which is really a custom venture builder focused on financial wellness within the Pakistan landscape. So here we are really looking at some really enterprising businesses and figuring out how to help them scale to the next level, right? So what is that mindset? How do you go about building a team? What's the right operating model for that? What's the right culture, values, along with the business acumen, right? So that's what we're doing,
Right.
and that's what we're into in Karachi.
Oh,
So, so
brilliant. And talking about more, I guess, looking at like using that background and your movement towards the Future Farm. What kind of happened there? Was it just kind of seeing a number of things within the ecosystems? Was there any particular events that kind of really got you involved in the Future Farm? What was your kind of storyline to it?
sure. Look, a bunch of us have been working together, and then I also got to meet along the journey, in terms of different facets of our lives. When Vladi, Pavli, and I first sat down to talk about this stuff, we saw a gap in really where, as you were navigating your career, really, that's what you focused on, and your journey, there were not a lot of models to think outside the box, right? Everything was kind of constrained to you go from job to job or career to career, and here's the model you follow. You go work with headhunters, and that's the only choices you have available. And God forbid you go do other things. And if you especially if your resume is with you did as a kind of portfolio resume that we call today, where you have lots of experiences, that was considered negative because like, oh my God, this
Mm,
person just jumps from one thing to another, has really never executed, as opposed to thinking about it holistically. So we've been thinking about that, and then really it was only really when we teamed up with Nectarios, where we kind of started to really hone in what it means to us at Future Farm. We realized that there was a lot of gaps around the entrepreneurial space, and we are each one of us in our personal capacities working with that space, either as investors or as incubators, as coaches, mentors in that space. Um, that we realized that it was a gap that required addressing. It was not. It was sort of starting to get known, but there really was no awareness of it. There was no platform with people to talk about this stuff. Now a lot of folks have started opening up, and which is really good. But also certainly no clear-cut support on how to navigate their space, right? So there was a lot
right.
of alpha sort of personalities, raising capital and thinking there was only one way to go run these businesses. And we realized that a lot of folks were really suffering mentally, emotionally, physically as they were navigating space. So that's where Future Farm came in. For us, it was really about investing in ourselves as individuals and saying, and so the metaphor of harvesting from a farm and it's about the future, and a lot of your resource in the farm gets recycled and you renewable, energy and so on. In renewable in terms of what you put in the soil, what crops, when, how, and kind of figure that out. So part of that was kind of like this continuous learning going on as an individual, and that's what we wanted to bring, from our aspect of what we could add to the wider ecosystem. And so that's where we really thought about Future Farm focused on. That was our focus area.
Brilliant. And I have to ask this question because, of course, you're sitting in Pakistan right now. In that journey, have you seen that that conversation, the well-being conversation, has been different in different geographies and regions when you're looking at well-being, or as in, are there certain parts of it which are uniform no matter where you are in the world?
Yeah, it's interesting actually. I think as we have, if you move away from Silicon Valley, there's more, real discussion going on about this as opposed to what happened in the Valley, even though that's seen as a mecca for entrepreneurs and, building businesses and startups. I think the view was that, and there's still a lot of this language used where you are building a business, you're all passionate about it, and the mindset is you have to put everything, you put everything at risk. Your personal stuff, your financial, your house, your home, your relationships, everything goes into the box and you come out of the other side. And then it's like, you are a billionaire, right? And the reality for most people, it doesn't happen, right? The risk part happens, you put everything into it and then there's no getting out. Almost like I see this as the metaphor I use is Hotel California, right? So you're all excited, you come in, you're building this business, and then you realize that you can't never get out. And there's a lot of cultural, social, personal, biases, hurdles, pressures for you to keep going, right? It's not like a job where you can go in and say, okay, I really tried hard, it doesn't work, I'm going to move on and get another job. People say, oh, what a successful story that is. Here, if you quit, then it was almost a negative. And often you had raised money from your family and friends and so on. So there was just a lot of pressure. And the folks that you dealt with or who were part of your mentors and coaches were very limited, right? So you couldn't really have the space to have an open conversation with anyone. Your family didn't get it. Your friends don't get it. You can't talk to investors, your team, because you're a leader or founder, or you may have a co-founder or something, but most of the time you're just stuck in your own world. And so you're trying to figure it out and you think you're the only one that has issue and don't realize that almost every person having a startup has an issue. To answer your question, we found it was a case everywhere, right? And in fact, the more further we got to places of Pakistan, it was like people were very open about it and kind of a lot more open to talking about it. Didn't really have the stigma of this gung-ho, you burn the midnight oil, you have to do 24/7 and you go. It wasn't there. It was like people were a lot more balanced about this. They didn't know, at least in the conversation, right? They didn't know how to address it, what the right solution was. How do you navigate that space? How do you anticipate some of this stuff? They don't know. But in terms of probably a couple hundred people that I've spoken to over the last year in various guises in this thing, and the data we've gotten back is a universal phenomenon. Everywhere the issues apply. And it's not like people not interested in this topic, in some segment.
No, fair. I guess, burnout doesn't see borders, right? With this. So talking about that, so you've played the role as an investor, as a mentor, with many of these portfolios and companies. What do you see as your role in that investor relationship, in that mentorship relationship? What relies on you?
So it's interesting, right? As we have grown, there's a young man walking behind me. As we have grown in this space, I think we have also learned, right? And also certainly trying to figure out a more balanced approach to this because we're also learning, right? And also learning from a individual perspective, right? So we have been investors, but also we have had our own. I certainly have had my own startups and so on, or kind of worked in businesses that I've started. And you're trying to say, okay, what's the balance there, right? Because we were also going through a lot of the mental wellness issue without even realizing it, without calling it, because we thought that was just normal. That's
Right.
how it's done, right? Of course, you suffer
Right.
with this thing, and you have, a lot of nervous tension and nervous breakdowns and so on. Just like that's what you do, right? That's how you only get successful like this, right? So just thinking about this, I think, firstly, and you see this also manifested a little bit, in our interaction at Future Farm, right? So first of all, about is creating a safe environment where we have every time we talk, we have a check-in and how you're doing and everything, and people talk about the personal stuff, not just business check-in, not just that stuff. So that's quite important. So having an environment where people feel they can talk about these issues, and you've seen this in our interaction, and we're doing the same thing with Nadeem, even with the portfolio companies and stuff. So we have that space where people can talk about very openly about all the issues dealing with and being stable, right? We're not really in the sense of, oh my God, here's my issues, but in sense that I feel safe talking about this. At least we are thinking, so that's very important. I think also I learned over the last couple of years, maybe 3-4 years now, is how having spaces where you can suspend your mind, right? Where you can go and do some activity that forces you to switch off automatically. So in my case, I have discovered sailing. I have learned to paint. I did some dancing classes and so on. And everyone has their own way, right? I work out every day or something. And in that moment, if you're painting, you cannot think about anything else because you're in, a canvas in front of you. You have your brush. You can't be somewhere else and painting, right? So what forces you just to create a pause. And oftentimes I find, like, when I do this every week for a couple of hours, whenever I'm in London, I have a place I go to and paint, and I try to then have other activities when I'm not in London around this. I come out and I'm completely refreshed, and then suddenly all those issues, I have a different perspective on it. I've had time to naturally stop, as opposed to what I used to talk about. People say, hey, go do some activity, deep breaths and so on. For me, at least, that didn't work because while I was doing deep breathing, I was still thinking about everything, right? It was just there. So I think that's very important. I think also we're learning that, therapy and coaching is not something you get if you have an issue, right? And so that stigma around you only go see a therapist if everything is broken down, you had nervous breakdown, you go see them. I think we are learning and actively engaged in the space where it's okay to talk to people. It's okay to share. It's okay to think out loud, get their feedback, think about how you want to do this stuff. And in a way, all these things are focused around building that emotional resilience, right? And that's very important. And I think that's the kind of thinking as a leader in the space, as an investor in the space. That's what we have to bring. And it's like that same kind of mindset, culture, if you may, some of the values you may, that we're trying to impart into our portfolio companies and into our founding teams and so on, and kind of for them to create that environment for their companies, right? And I think that's quite important. And that's, so hopefully that answers your question.
Answers and more some there as well. No, I hear you. I think the points that you've made so far are so valid, and it's something which we've, through the podcast series, learned that actually successful entrepreneurs who have made it out of the other end of that challenge, they partake in those activities, right? They've learned how to press reset, how to pause on those pieces. You mentioned, completely. So you mentioned leadership, and I'm quite keen to get a couple of your thoughts on this. The Future Farm was obviously is a catalyst for this conversation, and over summer we've seen some incredible discussions starting and opinions, coming out, which normally would have been hidden, right? They're stigmatized, as you mentioned. What does the successful leadership look like in this space? And what are you looking forward to seeing from other fellow investors?
Yeah, I think openness. I think the space to be vulnerable. So because it's a very lonely space, and it doesn't really matter whether you're a founder of a company. I've also experienced this as a leader, as a CEO of businesses and so on. very quickly becomes very lonely. And your a circle of trusted people that you can go to and be vulnerable with is very limited. It's almost seen as traditionally, it's been seen as a negative, as a weakness. Oh my God, Olivia. And I think the more we recognize that actually a vulnerable leader is a strong leader, builds a strong culture and a strong environment. I think that's very important. So my hope is that first of all, what we're trying to do with Future Farm is awareness. Simply, we be aware that this is not just my issue. A lot of people go through this, right? In various degrees and stuff. It's not really a sickness, right? It is this is what to expect. It's a hard thing building businesses, right? Oftentimes people come to building business think it's as easy. It's actually very, very hard. And you have to bring so much of you to the place that you're trying to build because that's what it takes. So you have to be aware of that. And then to be recognizing that the cycle that you're going through and saying, yep, that's what to expect. You will hit this space and you will have issues. You may have issues with your co-founders. You may have issues with the family. You may have issues with cash or money. You may not have enough to support something, or the business may not work. You may grow out of it at some point, right? And so how do you navigate this space and anticipate it and saying this will happen? I think then what we are still not there, and we're hoping to figure this out. Obviously, we're doing a lot of research around the space and so on. Is knowing to anticipate and then how to manage it, how to deal with it, how to address it. And unfortunately, right now, the solutions that are in front of people tends to be quite extreme, right? So people get into all kinds of answers which are, look, I will keep going and I'll take some drugs, or I'll keep going and the answer is more extreme as opposed to, look, I can just build it into my normal cycle to anticipate this stuff. So I think that's what it is. In my mind, the space to have that conversation, to be a space to be vulnerable and feel safe about it, the awareness that this happens and we can talk about this stuff, and then as a collective to try and figure out what is the set of tools, solutions that we can use to help us almost create a new way of building businesses. It doesn't have to be gung-ho, 24/7, all in, and it's either the there's a word in Urdu which I'm trying to translate in English, arya parya. Either you kind of fail or you're so it's like right the success around this getting measured in different ways as opposed to I have to be a billionaire, right? And most people don't make that, so it doesn't have to be just a financial metric.
Absolutely. And I love the quote you just pulled out there. In fact, to be a vulnerable leader is to be a good leader. Nadeem, I'm very conscious that this interview is standing in between you and an evening on the beach. So, but that has been
part of the suspension of the mind, eh?
Yeah. That's been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sharing your journey and thoughts and stuff there. And as I've said with everyone else I've spoken to so far, Future Farm's done some incredible stuff already. It's just the beginning, and we're looking forward to seeing where you will take it.
Thank you so much for your time, for making this conversation happen. But really excited that what we're doing as a team, and so thank you for everything you're doing in that space as well. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Awesome, great. Well, listen, have a lovely evening.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Right. Bye.